Less than 1 week left for NUMS MDCAT, and still some students are confused how can they actually ace their preparation, keep it up to the mark. So talking about myself, I'm Ibrahim Shafi, last year NUMS MDCAT topper. I got 98.1%, and I'm receiving a lot of questions on my Instagram account about students asking how should we keep the best utilization of this last week. So this guidance video is especially for those students who are going to give NUMS MDCAT this Sunday.
Audio Jungle.
And we're going to divide this video into three main segments. First of all, I'm going to tell some journal tips that I would like all of you to implement and use when you sit on Sunday, 28th of September, this Sunday, for the NUMS MDCAT. Then I'm going to move on to the subject-wise strategy, and at the end, one of the most hard questions that students ask about the psychological segment of NUMS, I'm going to try to put some attention into that point. So we'll start off with a journal overview. How can you actually keep this last week for the best preparation to ace NUMS, to top NUMS, hopefully? So the most important thing in this week that you have to do is do not start something new. You don't need to look over a new book, a new chapter, a new concept. Even if you know that you have missed something, the best solution is just to ignore it. Do not fall into peer pressure. Do not say that my friends have done it from this book, I haven't, I need to do it. This is actually going to be really detrimental, and I'll tell you why. The reason is, according to psychology, we know that in the last week our memory retention, it's not so good. Even if you do something new, the likely chance is that you won't remember it on Sunday, even if an MCQ comes from there. So the smartest strategy is to leave it. Do not waste your time, because now every minute, every second is gonna count. So do not waste on doing things that won't help. Rather, just revise to that old things that you have been doing, old concepts, old notes, old books, whatever you have studied over the past 3 months, just stick to that. Just do revision, skimming and scanning, look for the other books, and I'll talk about the subject-wise strategy in detail later. But for the time being, all I want you is to just revise the old concepts and don't move into something new. Secondly, you need to focus on your diet and your sleep, because this is the point when your pressure, I have myself experienced it at its climax, because you know that every there's a sort of environment, that atmosphere is created when you start to doubt your studies, your preparation. And what we do is that we start to overwork, we start to burn out, we start to study 12 hours, 13 hours per day. But this is actually really consequential. If you can look in any sort of study, research, psychology, ask AI, the best solution is provided that in the last week you need to keep your studies to a light work. Okay, so you don't need to focus a lot stress. There's no need for that. Just go for the light revisions, light periods of tests, and that's it. And the last most important thing in this journal tips is past papers. Past papers are gold. Go and look at the NUMS MDCAT 2024, 23, 22 and see how differently the questions are repeating. Questions do repeat from past papers. This is a cheat code that I used last year to top NUMS MDCAT, because I had done the past papers from at least like 2020 to 2023, and SAZABMU MDCAT past papers, if you look for those also, they're also quite similar to NUMS. So if someone is aiming to score high in NUMS, these are the two boards that you must have been done of 4 to 5 years of past papers, NUMS and SAZABMU. And if you get time, you can go for UHS also, but these are the main 3 journal tips that I would really want all of you to implement. Now let's move on to the subject-wise strategy. I'll start off with biology because it has the most weightage and it is one of those topics, especially if you look at NUMS MDCAT 2024 paper, biology was that portion that really was difficult. And I still remember doing those questions, doing them again and again during the paper and sort of guessing some of the answers. So you can ever expect, like, you never know, this same type of paper comes on Sunday. Hopefully it won't. It won't be so much difficult, but you can't say anything. So for biology, my approach was that I focused more on federal board, being a federal board student, and it was like really good for someone who's gonna give NUMS. A federal board is the top priority, and alongside with that, I did Punjab. Now for someone who has studied whatever book you have studied, like you're from Sindh, you're from Punjab, you're from KPK, you're from federal, I would say that do not start something new. As I told before, whatever book you studied for biology, just keep it the same. Just try to, in the last 7 days, you just need to skim and scan the details. For example, you can keep the last 2 days for biology, or for the last 3 days if you've already started your last final revision. For biology, you just need to open the book, you need to look at the highlighted things, the notes. Don't go in so much detail in the different minute, for example, examples or like values, although we don't have much in biology. But the point is, you just need to keep the concept superficially, extract the details because you've got less time. Moving on, for chemistry, it's the same. That whatever board you are, although we know that chemistry, most of the questions were from federal, but I think so you can do it even if you're from Sindh or KBK, because like the common things are almost the same in every board. And alongside some questions, like I remember there was one of benzene that came from chemistry Punjab textbook board. So you could look. I also had the same combination for chemistry federal and Punjab, and that was sort of, you could say, it completed most of the questions. Some were out of syllabus. Then I had to sort of guess them, and it worked. So for chemistry also, organic chemistry, that's some of the conceptual part. So you could keep that for the end, and you would start off with the easier chapters of first year. For example, stoichiometry, atomic structure, gases, solids, and liquids. They're sort of simpler. But then again, there are some formulae in these chapters, so you could write them somewhere separate and just review them one last day before the MDCAT on this Sunday. Talking about physics, physics does not have much weightage, and it's even decreased this year also. Last year, I guess there were like 40 MCQs. This time it's 30. So it's the same approach. You need to go for a formula sheet if you have built well and good. Even if you haven't, and if I talk about myself, I had no formula sheet till the end. How I revised physics in the last days was looking over the formula, flipping the pages of my KPK textbook board, because that's what we use in federal, and just looking at the enclosed boxes where the formula were written and sort of reviewing them. And I never looked into the exercise and numericals that are given at the end of the chapter, because they're so complicated and they don't really come because they need calculator to be solved, and we don't have it during the MDCAT. So for physics, you don't need to give a lot of time in the last week. Maybe one day on Monday or Tuesday, that's sufficient for it. Maybe 2 days, that's enough. And you need to focus more on chemistry and biology, because they are those topics, they don't only have more weightage, but they actually have poor retention because there are more details in these sciences as compared to physics. So that's what my suggestion would be. And lastly, focusing on English. English in the last week, many of you are confused about vocabulary. What should we do about that? So my personal opinion is that don't focus too much on the vocabulary right now. Just look at the past papers that are of NUMS and SLAMU, and look at the words that came in them, and sort of you should know the meanings of those, because you never know they get repeated. Other than that, vocabulary is really a vast resource, and I don't think so you need to focus a lot in the last 7 days for it. Rather, I think so you should focus more on rules, grammar rules, punctuation. Just skim them once, look at some of the examples and some of the MCQs that you did wrong, and I think so that's going to be sufficient for English. Moving on to the psychological segment, we're going to talk more in detail in the next part. Lastly, moving on to the psychological segment. Most of the students are confused because we have got no past paper of psychological segment, and this is something that has not been introduced, like it was introduced, I think so, in 2022 or 2023. It's something new, and many students are sort of confused how should we prepare for that. So talking about my experience last year, we had 50 MCQs and there were 30 minutes. This year, I think so, it's reduced to 15 minutes. So in psychological segment, the questions are open-ended. Like for example, the questions come there, what would you do if you failed this exam, or how would you rate your confidence, or have you ever cheated in your classroom? So these are questions that don't really test your analytical skills. They're just open-ended questions, and the best your aim should be to solve the MCQs in the given time, because 50 MCQs in 15 minutes, that's really something drastic, and you need to quickly answer them. So the point is that for those MCQs, just focus on solving them on time, and do not focus too much on getting the right answer, because the answer, there is no right answer. Now the question arises, how do they actually make its weightage? How do they calculate the aggregate from the 150 MCQs that are from the subjective portion and the 50 MCQs of psychological? So that's something they have never revealed, and I don't really think so that this 50 MCQs has a much major portion. Maybe it would have 4 to 5%, and the rest 95% is of the subjective sciences and the English. So if for this 50 MCQs, you can look for any sort of resource. You get 50 or 100 MCQs, you can try them beforehand, maybe like on Monday or Tuesday, so that you get more time for the other subjects in the later days. And do not worry about them. The best solution is you need to read the question. Whatever answer comes in your mind, just fill the bubble, because you've got really less time. And because it's going to be checked electronically, If you miss a bubble, then there is a point that you could lose marks. But if you solve them, no matter which bubble you fill, A, B, C, D, most probably you'll get the mark for that. So this was all about the NUMS MDCAT portion, because I've tried to keep this video short because your time is more precious right now. And if you still got any questions, you can always reach out to my Instagram, or you could write in the comment section in this video. Thank you.